Have you ever wondered how Vietnam managed to boost their agriculture sector while the Philippines lagged behind? Picture this. Two Southeast Asian nations, both with lush landscapes and fertile lands, yet their agricultural sectors tell two very different stories. In the arena of rice production, a key measure of agricultural success, Vietnam has emerged as a world leader, exporting a staggering 27 million tons in the last year alone. Meanwhile, the Philippines, despite having similar agricultural potential, has struggled to keep pace, producing less than half of Vietnam's output. But it's not just about rice. Agriculture is the lifeblood of both economies, contributing significantly to their gross domestic product. In Vietnam, it's a flourishing sector, accounting for 15% of their total GDP. Now shift your gaze to the Philippines. Agriculture's share in their GDP, a mere 9%. And let's talk about growth rates. Over the past decade, Vietnam's agricultural sector has grown at an impressive rate of 4% annually. But in the same period, the Philippines' agriculture growth rate was a paltry 1.5%. Even in terms of employment, the tale of these two nations diverges. In Vietnam, nearly 50% of the workforce is employed in agriculture, compared to just 25% in the Philippines. So, what gives? How did Vietnam, once a food-deficient country, pull off such a remarkable agricultural turnaround? And why has the Philippines, with its abundant natural resources and potential, struggled to keep up? Is it a question of policies? Or perhaps it's about the implementation of those policies. Maybe it's about investment in infrastructure or the application of technology. Or could it be a combination of all these factors and more? What could be the reasons behind this stark disparity? Is there something that Vietnam did right, that the Philippines missed? Stay tuned as we delve deeper into this agricultural enigma and uncover the secrets of Vietnam's Green Revolution and the lessons the Philippines could learn from it. Could the answer lie in the seeds themselves? What are the differences in the crop varieties used by these two nations? Well, let's delve into that. When we speak of agriculture in Vietnam and the Philippines, we're largely speaking about rice. This humble grain is the lifeblood of both nations, feeding millions daily. In the Philippines, traditional rice varieties have been the norm for centuries. These are tried and tested, resilient to local pests and diseases, and well-loved by the populace. There's a sense of cultural heritage attached to these grains, a link to the past that is revered and respected. Now let's shift our gaze to Vietnam. Over the years, Vietnam has embraced the winds of change, focusing on research and development to create new, high-yield, disease-resistant rice varieties. This isn't just a matter of scientific curiosity, it's a practical, pragmatic approach to feeding a growing population. Vietnam's agricultural scientists have worked tirelessly, cultivating new strains of rice that can withstand the harsh realities of climate change, resist pests, and still yield bumper crops. Many of these new varieties are also faster growing, meaning farmers can squeeze in an extra harvest or two each year. This focus on innovation has been a game changer for Vietnam. While the Philippines has stuck with the traditional, Vietnam has boldly embraced the new, and the results are there for all to see. Vietnam's rice yield per hectare is significantly higher than that of the Philippines, and it's largely down to these new varieties of rice. But it's not just about the seeds, it's about the systems and support in place to disseminate these new varieties, to educate farmers about their benefits and to provide the necessary resources for their cultivation. Vietnam's government and agricultural bodies have played a key role in this, ensuring that these seeds of success reach the fields where they're most needed. So the seeds of success were literally sown in Vietnam's fields. But what about the cultivation practices? Could they also play a part? Are there differences in how these countries cultivate their crops that could explain the gap in productivity? This is the question that lingers in our minds as we delve deeper into the agricultural landscape of Vietnam and the Philippines. Let's start with the basics, the farming practices. In the Philippines, traditional farming methods are still widely used. These methods, while rich in cultural heritage, are often less efficient and more labor-intensive. On the other hand, Vietnam has embraced a more modern approach. They've adopted mechanization in their farming operations, using machinery to plant, irrigate, and harvest their crops. This not only increases efficiency but also reduces the physical toll on their farmers. Speaking of irrigation, this is another area where the two countries diverge. While the Philippines largely relies on rainfall for watering their crops, Vietnam has invested heavily in irrigation infrastructure. These systems allow Vietnamese farmers to control the amount and timing of water their crops receive, leading to higher yields and more consistent harvests. Pest management is another crucial aspect of cultivation. In the Philippines, pests can wreak havoc on crops, often leading to significant losses. While the country has made strides in implementing pest management strategies, these efforts are often hampered by a lack of resources and education. Vietnam, however, has taken a proactive approach to pest management. They've integrated pest management into their farming practices, using a combination of biological control methods and carefully regulated pesticide use to keep pests at bay. The use of technology, efficient irrigation systems, and proactive pest management are just a few examples of how Vietnam has modernized its farming practices. These changes have not only improved productivity, but have also made farming more sustainable and less labor-intensive. Clearly, Vietnam's cultivation practices have contributed to its agricultural success. But what about the policy environment? Could that also be a factor? This question sets the stage for our next exploration, as we continue to unravel the agricultural mysteries of these Southeast Asian neighbors. How have government policies influenced the agricultural sectors in these two countries? Let's delve into it. In the world of agriculture, government policies are like the unseen hand that guides the plow. They can either pave the way for a bountiful harvest or lead to a season of scarcity, and this is where Vietnam has truly shone. Vietnam, recognizing the potential of its agricultural sector, made strategic investments in three key areas: infrastructure, research, and farmer training. This three-pronged approach was like a masterstroke that set the country on the path of agricultural prosperity. First, Vietnam invested heavily in infrastructure. They built roads and bridges, connecting remote farming communities to bustling markets. This not only gave farmers access to buyers, but also to vital resources such as seeds, fertilizers, and equipment. Secondly, the Vietnamese government prioritized agricultural research. They understood that to succeed, farmers needed to adapt to changing climates and evolving pests. So they funded research into drought-resistant crops, pest management techniques, and other innovations that gave Vietnamese farmers an edge. Lastly, Vietnam put a strong emphasis on farmer training. They didn't just give farmers the tools, they taught them how to use them effectively. This empowered farmers to maximize their yields, reduce their costs, and ultimately improve their livelihoods. Now let's turn our gaze to the Philippines. The country certainly had similar policies on paper, but implementing them was a whole different story. Infrastructure development lagged, research was underfunded, and farmer training programs were inconsistent. This led to a gap between policy and practice, leaving the country's agricultural sector trailing behind. It's clear that policies alone are not enough. They must be backed by action, investment, and a genuine commitment to empowering farmers. This was the secret ingredient in Vietnam's recipe for agricultural success. It seems that Vietnam's supportive policy environment played a crucial role in its agricultural boom. But what's the takeaway from all this? Well, it's simple. Good policies can lead to great progress, but only when they're implemented with conviction and care. What can we learn from Vietnam's agricultural success, and how can these lessons be applied elsewhere? As we've seen, Vietnam's rise to the top of the global agricultural sector was no fluke. It was a carefully orchestrated symphony of strategic planning, continuous innovation, and most importantly, the willingness to learn and adapt. So what are the key takeaways here? First off, let's talk about crop diversification and development of improved varieties. Vietnam didn't just stick to rice, they diversified, experimenting with new crops and developing improved varieties. This approach not only increased their production capacity, but also made them less vulnerable to market fluctuations. The lesson here? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify and innovate. Next, we have efficient farming practices. Vietnam embraced modern farming techniques, mechanization, and smart irrigation systems. They didn't shy away from technology. Instead, they used it to their advantage. This led to higher yields and better quality produce. The takeaway? Embrace change, adapt, and never stop learning. Then we cannot overlook the role of strategic government policies. Vietnam's government made agriculture a priority. They invested in infrastructure, provided farmers with access to credit, and promoted research and development. They understood that a thriving agricultural sector is the backbone of a healthy economy. The lesson? Support and investment from the top can make a world of difference. So how can these lessons be applied in the Philippines and other countries? It's simple. Embrace diversity in crops, invest in modern farming practices, and ensure that the government prioritizes agriculture. It might be a long journey, but as Vietnam has shown, it is definitely worth it. In the end, it's clear that Vietnam's agricultural boom wasn't an accident, but the result of strategic planning and continuous innovation. So what's your take on this? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, keep wondering. Don't miss out on future explorations and discoveries. Hit subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated with our new content. Your journey of wonder continues with every video. Stay connected and engaged on social media. Continue the conversation, follow us. Thank you for being a part of the Have You Ever Wondered community. Keep wondering, keep discovering. Until next time.